Before Casper, people would buy mattresses once every 10 years. But when it was easy and convenient and they liked it, that went down to every 5 years. And that's what we're looking at furniture. We think that a lot of people will buy more furniture at a higher frequency if the process is easy. If the process sucks, I encourage all founders is creativity. I mean, I got 8 of the top poker players in the world to invest.
No way.
And we got more bang from our buck from that. I'm 55 and I have life experience. I've dealt with lots of things and lots of people. And as a journalist, I've been all over the world and written about everyone from mobsters to famous athletes. It does help you manage life better than you would if you're 25.
Storm.
Guys, what's going on? We got another episode of the One Network here. We're back on this trend of doing the IRL podcast. And I'm fortunate enough to have Tim here from Two Tree. He's the founder and CEO. Very interesting guy. We haven't touched this niche, the niche that you're in before. So I'm curious to hear you kind of explain that. Additionally, we like to go here into people's backstories, how they became an entrepreneur, coming from a journalism background, any lessons to apply there, or maybe potential business paths for, journalists that are or currently journalists or people who are in that kind of industry right now in the network. So Tim, we like to ask people, how did you get started in business from the beginning?
Well, it is an interesting story, and thanks for having me, Chris.
Absolutely.
How it began in COVID, like many things did. I had been working as a journalist for 20 years for ESPN, the magazine, Playboy, the New Yorker, et cetera, and I had it was a woman behind it, of course. I had a girlfriend at the time in late 2020, and I asked her to kind of help fix up part of my living room because I'm incapable of doing that. And I got to thinking that it would make a good business. I know so many guys in the same boat. That's like they don't want an interior designer. They need a little bit of help. And so I decided to, work wasn't happening with really any real assignments for journalism. And I started doing some research into it. And first and foremost, I realized it's experienced my own personal pain of not being able to, do this myself. And it's a problem. Furniture shopping is terrible for most people.
I dread it every time I move, especially states. It's like,
how on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you enjoy furniture shopping?
A 0.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And I like good furniture, but I just don't know where to go, what to do, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
So I started doing research, and first and foremost, I wanted to see if this exists, this sort of service for people where it's not interior design, it's sort of a hybrid between interior design and DIY. And then when I found out it didn't exist, I wanted to know why it didn't exist.
Right.
And that was important. And I determined that. And then for the next 5 months,
for the viewers here who may not be plugged in, what was that? What did you find was the weakness in the market?
I found no reason for individuals. I found it difficult. Interior designers, this is kind of beneath their pay grade because what we do is not, I liken it to, we want to be Chipotle. We don't want to be, 11 Madison, which is, let's say, an interior designer. What we do is we help people get furniture for their living room, bedroom, and dining room in a fast and easy way with an online process. So interior designers wouldn't do it because it was sort of beneath them. And then furniture companies weren't doing it because they could only offer their own brand, instead of a mix of brands in a sense. And when I passed that hurdle, and then for 5 months, I just dove into the research, and every day I looked for a reason not to do it. I was working on a book, and I was like, find me a reason not to do it. And the more I learned,
the more reasons you had to do it.
More reason I had to do it.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of take the plunge. I can't say there was a sort of an epiphany, but
no epiphany moment.
No, but then I just figured out it was a problem that could be solved. It was a big, complicated problem, but I like solving complicated problems.
Interesting. Okay, so I want to hear more about that kind of, just the decision making, what these first few years of the path have kind of looked like. But I'm just curious, with respect to the industry itself, this has been a big pain point for me. I'm a guy who like changes cities pretty often.
Yep.
And at this point, I've been opting to just like a furnished condo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can rent. So how do you play in that kind of space? Like, where is it somewhere in? You mentioned the whole interior designer versus like kind of out of the box, but like, who's the actual individual customer profile of the person?
Individual customer profile is you or me. It's, we are targeted towards guys. It's not exclusive. We've had, men and women, but it really is.
That's funny because men are more clueless as to interior design and furniture.
And here's the thing, we never learn about it. That's the thing. You're never taught. And one of our early taglines was, sure, we'll be your girlfriend for the week. Yeah. And you just need a little bit of help, a little bit of guidance. You don't need the whole spank. And, it's for guys who are, late 20s to late 40s or even 50s, man. There are a lot of people out there who don't know their stuff because it literally is a terrible process. And when you've seen this model done in cosmetics, clothing, furniture shopping, grocery shopping, et cetera, it's there. The model was there. It was just cracking the code, and I didn't know anything about furniture or business or technology, so the learning curve I knew was going to be a difficult one.
Got it. Okay. So outside of just like market research and understanding the actual target sort of demo or product strategy, like what were some of the logistical steps that you took starting the company in terms of like sales, marketing, team building, all that type?
Team building, it was a learning process, and I'm sure you've heard this many times of making mistakes of, as someone who's never had a job interview or resume, finding people was the hard part. And I had a lot of hits and misses. I had terrible tech issues. I had a creative director who quit suddenly. I mean, it was like, and it's a combination of just learning, luck. You know how much that plays into it, doesn't it? And it took longer. I knew it was going to take longer, and it took longer. Like I there were so many mistakes made, and as someone who's bootstrapping it, you have to be very careful about that.
Right. Yeah. Well, the whole luck thing is interesting because it's something that we talk about. It's kind of like the undercounted factor where people think it's all hard work or, but there really is the luck factor is a significant piece. And then if I think of all my businesses that went well, yes, I did some things good, but there was also the timing and
there is. And to that point, which is really interesting, I make the analogy of building the startup was like playing in a poker tournament, in like, let's say the World Series of Poker, where sure you need the luck, but you got to put yourself in a position to take advantage of that luck when it arises and to realize when that is occurring, and not to it's about account management and keeping track of your money and your time and such like that. And then when the opportunity arises, you jump on it and you learn. And I will say this, that as a journalist, what really helped is that I'm completely open-minded. I didn't have an idea that I wanted, I didn't have a square idea that I wanted to put in a circle hole.
Right.
I was just open-minded. So I didn't have any biases to that. And I'm also pretty good at avoiding confirmation bias and such. So I was able to slowly make headway, and I knew some people who could help with build a website and, finding the furniture. It's not that complicated a problem, but
well, the logistics of that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you have vendors and like, how does the
So we basically found from the hundreds of furniture brands, we vetted many of them. We tested furniture in person, and we found 10 brands that we wanted to work with.
Okay.
I wanted to work with mid-range or smaller brands to grow a relationship with them.
Right.
And basically we offered just, pretty mainstream, up a little higher price point than IKEA, but not crazy.
Okay.
And develop relationships with them. And I hired an interior designer as our creative director. That's not my department. So
got it.
And, we built the back end. The back end's really complicated. That's what takes time. I mean, it's patience.
Yeah.
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 And
And how many people, who designs the back end for you, or how do you go about, like, I mean, you touched on that before, but
we it's so funny. It's my creative director now somehow we decided upon Airtable, which is a great platform,
I've
and
heard a lot of things about
we
it.
found a German engineer who specialized. He was actually an Airtable specialist who we got to work for us.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay.
And Rupert, he was a great guy, and
Yeah.
he developed that. I mean, there are problems. It was kind of a glorified MVP for a long time, and it's still in the works. But developing Airtable, putting together a catalog, we probably have 3,000 items that are like
Right.
tagged, and then we had to develop an algorithm by which people take a survey in our process, and then through that, furniture items are selected for them based on that. So we had to develop that too. A lot of this is out of my
Yeah.
pay grade.
Yeah, I got you. What does the customer aftercare look like? Like, what's the lifetime value? Or are you hoping that they use you again, like if they move again, or is there some type of ongoing service, or what's the?
We've already seen that happen with that sort of average lifetime value of one of our early customers is a woman who likes furniture shopping, but I knew her and she tried out our service and she liked it so much. And it was so easy that she just continued to buy furniture from us because it's like, it's Fresh Direct. Once you try Fresh Direct, it's hard to go back to the grocery store.
Right. You just get used to the convenience, and then they're kind of
Convenient.
addicted or relied on.
And we do things like, again, it was the simple blueprint for a startup. It's like, name the problems and figure out the solutions. Like, there's no guidance in furniture shopping, and now you have someone you can talk to and ask who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, what, in terms of the last couple of years, what did the first half of that look like versus the second half? Like, what changed, and how quickly did things go forward?
It's been a slower burn in a sense.
Yeah.
Developing what we had from the beginning was our voice. It was clear that was an advantage because the entire space is very stoic and serious, and it's images of beautiful rooms, and we wanted to create something different and create something that's accessible and
Right.
funny and smart. Just like follow Warby Parker or any of these brands.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's like the branding. Just a caveat there. We work with a lot of like SaaS businesses and stuff like that. But with this type of company where it's like sort of lifestyle based,
Yep.
the branding is, I imagine, like extremely important. Bring up Warby Parker and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you have to make it acceptable. And what we realized is that, to your point, you'd be the perfect guy and Casper was our model. Before Casper, people would buy mattresses once every 10 years.
Right.
But when it was easy and convenient and they liked it, that went down to every 5 years. And that's what we're looking at furniture. We think that a lot of people will buy more furniture at a higher frequency if the process is easy. If the process sucks, wants to go to, furniture shopping, they're not going to do it. I need to go furniture shopping. I still don't want to do it, and that's the secret. And but what is interesting and some issues, being a first mover in the space, there is no other.
There's no other competitor or somebody who's exactly the same.
Nope. And that problem is also, educating your audience. Like, they don't understand. They understand two ways to buy furniture. You have an interior designer or DIY, and to explain what we do is somewhat difficult. We had great advisors, though. I got lucky that as a journalist and being older, I have a lot of contacts, and that really helps. And to build a network like that, and to build people you can just trust, a small team. I'd rather have 3 people I really trust than 8 people who I can't get on the phone, or they're just
Yeah.
And again, I'm learning all the time, and it's again, it's you just learn not to make the same mistakes, and this is uncharted territory, so we're having some fun too.
Right.
We're having a blank canvas is really fun, but sometimes you feel like you're Columbus crossing the ocean. You're not sure where you are at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so marketing funnel wise, what does that look like? What's like the cost per acquisition? Can you break down kind of your funnel? And
our funnel has been, it's funny because what we do, digital advertising has been hit or miss. We found that Google Ads isn't that great until we realize a much more brand awareness. So, and what we do involves storytelling. It has to, it's not a 5-second pitch where you're like,
Yeah.
hey, this is a platform that's going to make your taxes easier. It takes a little explaining. So we found that, meta ads have been good. We've been targeting urban areas, obviously, where this problem persists more. We know our demographic very, very is very consistent. So we know who to speak to.
Right.
And but native advertising, podcasting, storytelling, wherever we get the chance to do that is really the key, because buying furniture is a longer cycle.
It's organic. It is organic.
Yes,
a process.
it is. Yeah. And this is not something that's an easy sell. And we know that there's just a sort of tipping point. And I really believe in guerrilla marketing too. And we've done this of like outreach to tech companies where, we did it with Google, where they have a certain sort of chat room for housing, and people can just spread the word through that instead of, we've found that digital marketing is difficult in the space that we're in until we achieve like a certain level
of scale or brand awareness.
Yeah.
It's just not, I think there's kind of like a overlapping sort of Venn diagram of demand. And, a lot of companies, they want to go all in on marketing or get a fractional CMO, you know what I'm saying? And just pound every channel.
But you gotta have that's unwise though. And don't you think? I mean, it's like,
no, I do. Yeah. It won't accomplish the goal. Like, you can only really benefit from that.
Yeah.
After you already see the dynamics of the market working out.
Absolutely. And what we found is like, we're approached by digital marketing agencies all the time, and they seem to have a cookie cutter solution where, they all do. They're like, hey, we'll increase your ROI, blah, blah, blah. And they don't understand that we have somewhat of a unique product, and they don't take that into account.
They don't understand.
Nope, they don't. And that's where we've been very wary. And, I think where we are is, and I encourage all founders, is creativity. I mean, there's ways around that, don't you think? Like, there's really undervalued. I'll give you one example that I bootstrapped this, but the only raise I did was I got 8 of the top poker players in the world to invest.
No way.
Because I had written about some poker players in the past and knew one of them. I was kind of running this by him, and he really liked the idea.
Right.
And after analyzing the poker community, it's 95% guys. They sit around tables all day.
There's a lot of alignment in that.
Totally. And they have money to spare. And it's a very undervalued space.
Right.
And we got more bang from our buck from that. I mean, it really was Twitter ads. Oh my God. And that's how they all communicate. So that's, I strongly encourage everyone to really, I hate to say, I think outside the box, but a little unconventional thinking and creativity can go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you? I mean,
no, I agree entirely. Yeah. We see people go down the wrong path. They're just not thinking logically about things. They want the easy.
Yeah. And it doesn't make for a sound model. If you're just throwing marketing dollars, it's like, I prefer the reverse methodology of really gaining early traction through organic means and working your way up, especially for something, again, what we're talking about is a big ticket item, and it's a much longer cycle for the shopper as well too.
Right.
There's much more.
It's not instantaneous. It's not spur of the moment.
No, it's not. And it's the poker. We're still in the midst of the sort of poker project, we call it. And we're now just about to start a new group of ads and a real press out there. And we feel like word spreads there, and then, that's it. And it's also a market that's always getting new poker players into it.
Yeah. Have you had any big kind of self-doubt moments, or where you thought things were doomed to fail?
Wait, what time is it? Yes, it was about 3:00 this afternoon.
How do you address those? How do you address that?
It's funny because I know, being older, what's prepared me best for this wasn't business school, wasn't, startup seminars. It was, I worked on a novel for 8 years.
Right.
So I know how to grind it out intellectually. And then I trained, I fought in the Golden Gloves. I was a boxer for 2 years.
It teaches you commitment
And pain, and you just work
can't
your
give up.
way. Yeah, you don't give up, and you just don't put it in your mindset to do so. And I mean, how many founders have you heard stories about? They just kind of bail because it gets hard. They don't have, when you're 25, you don't know what it's like to spend a year, 2 years, 3 years working on something that, just need patience and bide your time and make smart decisions. That's the other thing. It's like, it's not making rash decisions, and it's not about, for me, I don't come from a startup world, so I don't care about who's raised more money than me. None of that. I'm not. This is not a dick swinging contest, for lack of a better term. I apologize for that, but you know what I mean. And it's that insulation I have is both an advantage and a deficit in some ways. But I think it's helped me a lot that you're not worried about, like, the guy down the street who's just raised $20 million sitting in a Series B, and I'm just like, who cares? I keep my head down, and you keep grinding. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, the secrets. You tell me. You know more. If you have the secret, you just let me know. But the problems we have, it's you've got to manage a work-life balance, which is important. Mm-hmm. I'm sure the importance of that with you doing 20 million things.
Demand, and a lot of companies, they want to go all in on marketing or get a fractional CMO. You know what I'm saying, and just pound every channel.
And you gotta have that's unwise, though. And don't you think? I mean, it's like,
no, I do. Yeah, it won't accomplish the goal. Like, you can only really benefit from that.
Yeah,
after you already see the dynamics of the market working out.
Absolutely. And what we found is, like, we're approached by digital marketing agencies all the time, and they seem to have a cookie cutter solution where, they all do. They're like, hey, we'll increase your ROI, blah, blah, blah. And they don't understand that we have somewhat of a unique product, and they don't take that into account.
They don't understand.
Nope, they don't. And that's where we've been very wary. And, I think where we are is, and I encourage all founders, is creativity. I mean, there's ways around that, don't you think? Like, there's really undervalued. I'll give you one example that I bootstrapped this, but the only raise I did was I got 8 of the top poker players in the world to invest.
No way.
Because I had written about some poker players in the past and knew one of them. I was kind of running this by him, and he really liked the idea.
Right.
And after analyzing the poker community, it's 95% guys. They sit around tables all day.
There's a lot of alignment in that.
Totally. And they have money to spare. And it's a very undervalued space.
Right.
And we got more bang from our buck from that. I mean, it really was Twitter ads. Oh my God. And that's how they all communicate. So that's, I strongly encourage everyone to really, I hate to say, I think outside the box, but a little unconventional thinking and creativity can go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you? I mean,
no, I agree entirely. Yeah. We see people go down the wrong path. They're just not thinking logically about things. They want the easy.
Yeah. And it doesn't make for a sound model. If you're just throwing marketing dollars, it's like, I prefer the reverse methodology of really gaining early traction through organic means and working your way up, especially for something, again, what we're talking about is a big ticket item, and it's a much longer cycle for the shopper as well, too.
Right.
There's much more.
It's not instantaneous. It's not spur of the moment.
No, it's not. And it's the poker. We're still in the midst of the sort of poker project, we call it, and we're now just about to start a new group of ads and a real press out there, and we feel like word spreads there, and then that's it. And it's also a market that's always getting new poker players into it.
Yeah. Have you had any big kind of self-doubt moments, or where you thought things were doomed to fail?
Wait, what time is it? Yes, it was about 3:00 this afternoon.
How do you address those? How do you address that?
It's funny because I know, being older, what's prepared me best for this wasn't business school, wasn't, startup seminars. It was I worked on a novel for 8 years,
Right.
so I know how to grind it out intellectually. And then I trained. I fought in the Golden Gloves. I was a boxer for 2 years.
It teaches you commitment and
Pain, and you just work
just can't
your
give up.
way. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't give up, and you just don't put it in your mindset to do so. And I mean, how many founders have you heard stories about? They just kind of bail because it gets hard. They don't have, when you're 25, you don't know what it's like to spend a year, 2 years, 3 years working on something that, just need patience and bide your time and make smart decisions. That's the other thing. It's like, it's not making rash decisions, and it's not about, for me, I don't come from a startup world, so I don't care about who's raised more money than me. None of that. I'm not. This is not a dick swinging contest, for lack of a better term. I apologize for that, but you know what I mean. And it's that insulation I have is both an advantage and a deficit in some ways. But I think it's helped me a lot that you're not worried about, like, the guy down the street who's just raised $20 million in a Series B, and I'm just like, who cares? I keep my head down, and you keep grinding. I mean, I don't know, the secrets. You tell me. You know more. If you have the secret, you just let me know. But the problems we have, it's you've got to manage a work-life balance, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the importance of that with you doing 20 million things.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's
yeah
that you have to be able to sacrifice, and you have to know what you're getting into, and it's not it's commitment. And I will tell this to anyone who will listen, is just patience, and the hard times. You've been there, I'm sure, yourself, where you're just like, I haven't had a panic sleep in about 2 months,
right?
Which is good.
Which is good news.
If
you're not having that, then you're
no. I mean, but you've had those, right? Doesn't everybody have those?
Yeah.
I mean, and I've had luck where the money was running out, and I just happened to find literally $400,000 that I didn't know existed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's like part of it. That's like a key part of it, is those turnarounds. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's so funny how things work out, but you have to, again, have the self-awareness to recognize these things when they come your way, and not to miss the opportunity to take advantage of them, I think.
Right. Yeah. And that's a trained eye too. You know what I'm saying? But it's kind of the art of turning all these mistakes and turning them around as quick as possible into.
Totally. But I mean, it's funny because as a writer, I could spend a month, a year on a story, 2 years, and I can figure anything out. Obviously, that what I'm doing now with technology, there is stuff that is just out of your hands.
Yeah, you can't. It's not even worth attempting. You're just gonna have to walk around and outsource.
I couldn't use Google Calendar before I started this. I was like a true Luddite, and learning.
That's how you know somebody's not in the know, is when they can't use Google Calendar.
No, I was like an API. What's an API?
Right.
I didn't know
the API key.
So why it's been doubly hard, Chris, is I'm kind of running a company and going to business school simultaneously.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Which is hard. But I will say this, that organizations like yours, and I'm not just saying this, are really, really helpful.
You need accountability, you need the support.
Yeah, and putting people together too. Also, there is a network out there, and you got to find people who, whatever support you can find. And we all
you got to find it somewhere. You can't do it solo. I mean, you could be a solopreneur, but you can't really do it just emotionally.
Have you done it? Were your ventures solo or co-founders?
Some of them were co-founders, the first couple ones, and then from there I realized that
did you
don't get along so well with the co-founders.
I feel better about that, because I've always been self-conscious that I do it, but I'm like, it's a lot easier decision making, and if you get a marriage you don't like, it's a problem, right?
Well, I think if some people, they just meet like a really solid person, they just happen to be two really solid people.
Yeah,
I just haven't been that where I've, you know what I'm saying? Usually one person's foot is out the door.
Did you meet yours organically, or was it sort of, was it a Y Combinator thing? Or
yeah, well, it was kind of like that. It was while I was in school.
Yep.
With them. Yeah. But it was a part of entrepreneurship.
How soon did you realize that it wasn't working out.
Just when I was way more committed, they were more.
Yep.
And that's usually how it is.
Yeah.
I'm talking to a guy now who's got a co-founder, and we're trying to manage him out of the scenario. So,
but
I have talked to some people who work with their wives, and they've been in business 10, 15 years. I actually had 3 of those in the last couple of weeks.
But
I'm thinking that's crazy.
God bless. But I mean, if that works, but I mean, I would rather suffer through problems as a solo founder than have to deal. Absolutely. Yeah. And you're dealing with that. And I think that's.
Well, it is emotionally easier when you have the co-founder, because then those moments, those sleepless nights, they fall on 2 people, or so you find yourself not coming into last minute scenarios.
Yes,
because there's more conversations. But yeah, I just find all the other stuff around it to create so much extra time.
Yep.
And demands or energy drain that I don't want to do it.
But again, my age, I'm 55,
right,
and I have life experience. I've dealt with lots of things and lots of people. And as a journalist, I've been all over the world and written about everyone from mobsters to famous athletes. And it does help you, manage life better than you would if you're 25, I mean, how much have you learned over the course of your career? You're probably a different person than you were.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like I can only imagine how much I would know. You know what I'm saying? What is it that if I learned so much in the last 10 years or whatever, it's like, how much would I know?
Totally. I mean, and you know how to, it's like working out more efficiently. And the information.
Do it in less time.
Yes. And it's like the information that I'm learning now, even though I'm well behind the curve, I know how to manage it. I know how to manage time better. I know how to manage life better and problems and the shit that comes up, because, it's every day there's isn't it someone said that there's only 2 modes of existence, panic and excitement in the startup, where it's
I heard about that. There's no there's
no day where you're just like, hey, this is great, or it's really easy.
Well, I haven't had that. Yeah, I'm still waiting for that.
I'm waiting for that as well too, and I just don't know if it comes until you exit.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who've had exits, and it's but they always get into another business with the same problems. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like they can't get out of the hamster wheel. I
am not going to have that problem, by the way. I'm gonna go to a beach. You're exactly right. You know what I mean? I've done it. I think my gig is up, and I think we're excited now because, as I mentioned to you, and it's terrible to say that we have now a tech feature that we're just getting a provisional patent on, which is gonna.
You have the provisional patent, or you're
filing it this week. We've already done the paperwork. I mean, and that's going to be a true game changer, and it's going to it's going to solve a problem that's never been solved on this planet, and it's a very, very, very useful tool that basically anyone could use. So that's exciting. There are moments where you're just like, even today was one of the more exciting days I've had in the years that I've been working on this, because we just got the sort of draft of the patent application. So the moments, you've got to enjoy them when you can. And I give
myself, pick and choose those moments. Kind of appreciate them.
I give myself 6 hours to enjoy those moments. You know what I mean? Remember when your first business launches and you're just like, we're up, the website's up, and then you have 6 hours and then you're just back to work.
Right. That's you can't celebrate that.
No.
That's what I've learned. You got to be like kind of flat. You know what I'm saying?
How much time do you allow yourself to celebrate things? But you also have to realize that and it's also that balance of not beating yourself up, and not be, celebrate some stuff. I'm still waiting for that though. I haven't done it yet. We haven't even had a launch party or anything like that. I mean, it's funny. I don't know when that happens. Do you have any advice on at what point are you saying to yourself, yeah, we made it, I mean, I always feel like it can fall apart.
Well, that's what so that I've had that issue too, where I thought I made it, because
really
so much money, and then things fell apart.
How
not fell apart completely, but they cut pretty.
But enough. And was it a quick cut? Because that's
no, I mean, it was a kind of like a cut beneath the surface for a year or two.
Yep.
And then all at once, and just
really,
and you lost like ton of money.
And it was it? Did you see it coming, or should it?
Not really.
Yeah.
I sort of had, but it wasn't different than, that's the thing, is it wasn't different than the everyday kind of business stress.
That's
So
interesting. Yeah.
I've had the same feeling, and then it doesn't result in anything.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, it goes to, so let's say you were advising someone like me, like, where's the playbook? I haven't found any. Listen, there's great material out there. You can listen to people. You have to
right.
obviously parse information the best you can, and everybody's got their own opinion on everything. It's like, where do you find the playbook? Where do you go to find, that right playbook? Is it just experience, intuition, research, combination?
I feel like I think at this point, I don't do any research.
Really?
Do you know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
it's just like so many things are just gut-based, time-based, that sometimes I'll outsource the research. Like I'll tell somebody else on the team to research it for me. But personally, I don't do too much research. I also think that a bigger threat to your business is getting lost in the weeds.
True.
Like, there's so much more that you could do with your time just by showing up face to face with your clients or business partners.
Yeah.
That it's almost like it's should be weighted more heavily than researching things.
Yes. Keep it moving forward. If you can even do just
At all costs.
a little bit every day. And it's, and there are some days, you just don't want to wake up and do the job. That's where it gets really hard, I don't know.
What are you rebounding on those days?
What would you do? When you woke up on a day, you must have had the days where you're just like, can't.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you have a sort of something to shake you out of that?
Yeah. See, for me, what I realized with this is when I didn't have any, when I was operating more like kind of as I didn't have a team environment, I didn't have like a client environment, I would find myself having those days like 2 out of 7 of the week.
Yeah.
And I tried to shake out of it just by like going to an office. That was kind of like what got me out of it. But then what I found works even better than that is to just make other people reliant on me. So like they need to get something from me, or they have a reminder to call me or to set up a meeting. And that pretty much reliably, if I have people putting pressure on me, I would say 9 out of 10 times that gets me out of the funk.
Yeah.
And then there's no funk.
Which is good. And now I thought you were going to say tequila gets you out of the funk, but I'm not.
That's
sure.
One of the ones.
That's what I like to do.
That gets me in the funk.
That's what I get. Oh boy. Trust me, those days are over when you're running a company too. I mean, all of this. I mean, it's, it's a life experience, and I'm pretty old to be starting doing this. I would assume. You probably don't get a lot of folks my age deciding to go into this, do you?
It's actually funny, but you do.
You do.
Yeah, you do.
With no experience,
I've seen it where people are in an industry for usually they do it in the same industry. So that's the difference.
Yeah.
Is you're doing it in a separate industry than like what you're.
Yeah. I mean, the media, who wants to be in that? But yes, that is true. Furniture seemed so again, it seemed, I don't know. I mean, I think there are advantages of going into something into which you don't know anything about, because you don't have these biases. You don't have these preconceived notions of.
Well, that's an interesting thing is I used to give the advice that like, hey, if you're moving from a career to try to be self-employed, you got to work off your existing book of business. I've seen a lot of people who it doesn't work for them.
Yeah,
because they're too plugged in. Even if they're in their same industry, they need a different mindset, and it's too tied to their old mindset. Guess what ends up happening? They end up going back to the career after 4 years.
Absolutely, and if you have, I think if you have a career and as a writer, you do have a good skill set. You really think things through. You look objectively at a lot of things, which are, I can't underestimate the importance of that.
Writing is definitely like one of the foundational skill. It's probably like next to sales is probably like the big.
Absolutely. And it's easier to, I always said that it's easier to find someone to write code for you than to write good copy for you. I think that's much harder. And that's what I can do.
It's easier for somebody to write code for you.
Yes, I can find people to write code for me, but people to write good copy is difficult. And I think people, I mean, to your point, don't you think people underestimate the importance of writing in any of these business?
Well, one of the things now that we have a lot of like copywriting coaches who like authors. They have courses and info products. It's in high demand because a lot of businesses, the copy is big about the ad headlines or
Absolutely.
But the interesting thing is the AI. So we have a guy on who I'm curious your sort of perspective or opinion on that.
It's funny that I can sniff out anything written by, let's say, Chat GPT pretty quickly.
Okay.
There's just some giveaways. I mean, it has to do with, like, for me, reading and writing is like music in my head. And when I read something where the music is off a little bit, it just sounds like manufactured by that.
I think the same thing. I'm like, if it has like that exact Chat GPT structure, it's like, I don't even want to read it.
No, and there's always like one or two words that are sort of a giveaway. There's something just like a little bit off on it, and I think it's useful. I don't use it. Do you use it?
No, I don't use it for anything, honestly.
I don't use it for anything.
I would rather, it's easier to do it yourself. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like it makes. I was hiring somebody for a secretary.
Yeah.
Like $70,000 a year. Like,
yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, and she sent me an essay, or she sent me like a text response in Chat GPT, like a page long, about why she wanted to, or was even an answer to a question. I'm like, oh, if you have this, and I'm like, immediately deleted the number, and it's over.
No,
I think it's crazy. I think it shows an epic amount of like social ineptitude to even want to use it.
I'm surprised that people don't think that other people will recognize it, because they're very easy, recognizable bells and whistles, at least I've found, and such. And to your point, I think you're right. It's more work to use it than not to use it. And it's also like there is an important languages, obviously people don't read as much as they used to and such, but language is in our DNA. You know what I mean? There's a deeper sense of connection with real and authentic language for clients, for people. And especially, again, what we're doing is we have high ticket items. We have a longer cycle. We have to communicate with these people. And also the other thing is communication skills, which is in the same bucket of saying, I can't underestimate that. I mean, you being a sales guy, I mean, it's all about language, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like my best business successes have come from just framing something properly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like getting past that writer's block, and then you have the one DM or the one email, and then that just books you 200 meetings.
And you're like, I mean, it's really fun when you figure it out, where you're like, that's it. Yeah.
And it like clarifies a lot in your head.
Yeah.
Now you're like, now I have the weapon.
Yeah.
But I found it very hard to systematize. Like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like if you just put yourself in a creative environment, you can come up with it. But I see some people, they write out, we have tons of people. I got like 10 people in the network that sell off, like how to find your product market fit.
Yep.
Okay. And it's a Notion. I don't know if you know Notion, but it's like a page.
Yeah.
Where it's explaining how you find like you measure the ICP, and then somehow you get to the headline.
Yeah.
But I feel like all the best headlines or things that I've come up with have just been inspired by something very specific that happened.
I can't agree more. We just came up, and it goes deeper than just a headline. So we were working on a meta campaign, and I can't talk about
you can't talk about this.
No, I can. I don't want to besmirch anyone I worked with, but needless to say, that some of their copy wasn't very good for certain things, and so I'm working on it, and then and you're just throwing things out there, and you're throwing things out, and then we came up with it that Two Tree is the company you think about when you don't want to think about furniture shopping,
right.
And it was like simple as that, and it was.
Yeah,
it went from like, this is the company you want to think about when you think about furniture, but no, you don't, you know what I mean? And it's that organic process where you're just like, shit. And that is something you've got to work on. That's not a Chat GPT. That's not going to, Chat GPT is never going to come up with something like that and such, where you just know. And it not only is it a marketing line, but it kind of encompasses the whole company, you know, and it can get it really deeper. And it's the process of self-discovery about your business and about your process.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, unfortunately, these tools I feel are,
They move you away from the gold.
Yeah. I think people underestimate the power of that communication, or, you know, and what we do is, listen, everyone will tell you it's about storytelling, and that's done through writing, that's done through your podcast. It's done through, you know, I tell the story. I tell people the story about the name, how we got the name Two Tree, if you don't mind.
Tell me that. Yeah. I was curious about this.
Two Tree. It sounds very eco-friendly, and we're a furniture company, obviously. But it has nothing to do with that.
That's what I was thinking, like where you have the toilet paper.
No. I used to, when I was a journalist, I knew friends with this lawyer who was sort of a Michael Clayton. He was a fixer, and he would hire me to do PI work for him. So I would wear a wire or tail people, and he had an office in Midtown. Small office in Midtown, and he was from Merrick, Long Island, and Merrick is, you know, Merrick, Long Island.
Yeah.
He had a guy, I swear to you, named the Count of Love, this guy from his hometown who had a heavy Long Island accent. And you'd say, Count, could you go to the courthouse, file these papers?
Yeah.
You'd say, no problem, Two Tree. And it was his shorthand for easy as 1, 2, 3. It was Two Tree. And we all kept saying, this was 15 years ago. And when it came time to name the company, that it was immediate. And I had advisors saying, you know, you have to go to a branding agency and figure out, you know, and I was like, absolutely not. I was like, it's Two Tree. And it's easy to, you know, it falls into kind of like.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even think about the Italian pronunciation.
Well, the Long Island. I don't think the Count is. It was just like, hey, Two Tree. I know. And I love that story.
Crazy.
And these are the personal things that I think, you know, that make the startup life, and it is fun. And, you know, those are the fun. There is a lot of fun to it, despite, you know, the panic sleep and all of that. And it's, you know, God, day to day, I'm still learning every day, man. You know, I can only serve as,
you can only know so much.
I can only know what I know, which is very limited, but I do, you know, I'm kind of taking notes for a book, which is also helpful for me because I write things out by hand. And the book isn't how to build a startup. It's like what it feels like a Bourdain-like book of like, for people,
very introspective
for people who aren't in the world to understand what it feels like, what it really is. And
people don't understand it. That's the other thing. You know?
Totally don't. And all the books that I've read don't
really break it down in a relatable way.
Yeah. And sometimes it's funny, and sometimes it's poignant, and sometimes it's, you know, it's great. You know, it's all encompassing, but it is in a bit. Have you had any of your startups, any projects that haven't been somewhat of an adventure?
No.
Right?
It's just like, you know, relaxed or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, it's always something that you're just, you know, I look at it as a fight, or as like whether it's a poker match or a boxing, you know what I mean?
It's a war. That's what I look at it as, war. I've found that that's the most. The two ways that I've looked at it the best are either as baseball.
Yep.
Because that really ties in like the luck portion to it. Which is like, you know, you got to get a couple hits in a row. It's not like you just are a great team.
Yeah.
You know, you got to get some luck. The defense has to be bad.
Yeah.
Got to kind of capitalize on opportunities.
And that's why I make the poker analogy, because first of all, the World Series of Poker, you know, you're playing for days and days. I mean, it is a fucking grind.
Yeah.
And it's literally about strategy, about chip management and management of your funds. It's about no one gets to the final table of any of those tournaments without luck. There are coin flips all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you're not in position where you have managed your money well enough, you're not going to be able to take advantage of it to the fullest. And everyone's out to get you. You know what I mean? You're kind of on your own.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just have to be smart and patient, and also take care of yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
And really manage your time and your ability to concentrate and focus. And poker is that grind. It's really a grind, and you need all of those factors to really kind of come together, and some might be out of your hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the war analogy too, because it's like you got, sometimes you have a defensive posture, or you gotta.
Oh, it's really. I might have panic sleep tonight. By the way,
Yeah,
after this conversation.
Yeah, you're gonna be so hyped up.
No. After this, I'm just like all of these things. No, it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's and having conversations like this. I don't get to have conversations like this, so this is a pleasure for me, to be honest with you. And I hope it can serve some people because you don't have to, no, gone to UPenn. It probably helped, so which you did, or to business school, and you just don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to.
No.
It did help going to UPenn, but it's like, but I've met a lot of people. Like, there's a kid in our network who is like, he just turned 18. He's got a website agency. They're doing like 50 grand a month. And he's like, and he comes from a good family, but he's like, he didn't even.
What would you have done differently? Is there anything you would have done during college or in the few years after college? Is there anything course you'd have taken? Is there anything you would have done differently?
I would have started trying to get into. I would have been more aggressive about putting myself out there, like on social media and recording. I really didn't want to.
Yeah.
I could speak in front of a crowd, like I could do public speaking very well, but for whatever reason, I was not like the social media. Like, I'm going to put my face on social media, and if I did it back then, and even if it was a small habit, it would paid off. Like, that's like Bitcoin.
That's interesting. I'm the same way. I'm great at public speaking, no problem. Social media, it feels different to me, and I mean, as you said, and what you said was interesting. You don't have to do too much. You don't have to, right? Just get used to it. Put yourself out there, and do you think anyone should start doing that at any time?
Yeah, I think everybody should start doing it. Yeah, right away. Yeah. Because, but some people, some people are just like not great speakers or entertainers.
Yep.
Even then, there's niches that you can be talking about that are interesting. So you could be a totally boring person, but if you speak about an interesting niche, like I had this guy who we invested in his company, super boring guy, put me to sleep in 2 seconds, but he did these great YouTube videos about his niche.
But here's a question to you. Why I don't do it? Maybe you felt the same. That
right.
I feel like I could be doing. It's not a
better,
waste
more productive.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I know, but you're right because it's undervalued. I think
it's like it's kind of like that's a passive investment. Like I was thinking the same thing. Like, why would you could spend 500 hours recording social media content and never make a single dollar on it. Right. So it's like, why don't I spend those 500 hours like making phone calls or
totally, yes, creating something, and
but it's like diversifying. So it's like, okay, you're gonna have real estate, and then you're gonna have stocks.
Yep.
If you're not diversified in this realm, it's gonna cost you in the long run.
And if you're good at it.
And if you're good at it too,
it is the thing, and now I have to go do that actually because it's like I'm a storyteller. That's actually one of my few strengths. And you say it's like just get it rolling a little bit at a time,
but sunk cost fallacy, like the time spent side of it is a little more like it's more guilt, and like I'm very used to rejection in a business like sales content.
Yep.
But the rejection, it's not so much rejection, but it's kind of like, oh, you just spend all this time and nobody's watching this. Do you know what I'm saying?
Listen, I have spent my life with rejection as a writer. Are you kidding me?
Right.
I mean,
it's very similar to that.
Yeah. I don't mind that. But the idea of it being self-indulgent, that's where I was, is incorrect. And you're right. It's a valuable tool, especially in this day and age. I mean, even a minimum. That's great advice. And it's like, and I'll tell you this, for older people like me, whatever, who are reticent to do that. It's just something you just gotta pull up your bootstraps and do it, and you find it probably I'm sure it gets easier, and you get the hang of it. And right,
we have a client who's 75 and does YouTube.
Have you found is there an ROI that's
kind of the ROI? You don't even necessarily have to get a ton of views on it.
Yeah.
You could get 10, 20 meetings, like sales qualified calls. Like this is in the B2B space,
Sure.
or what, whatever your metric is, from 1,000 views.
Really?
So like, there could be an ROI on it that's equivalent to another major platform. And then the real benefit of it is that it's something that exists long term.
Totally.
So people can find it.
Back in. And you have control over it. I mean, complete control over it. No, it's smart. And again, see that this is why I come. I learn
foolproof. But that's what I'm saying. You got to be this is one of those things where you have to be comfortable potentially like taking a loss on it.
Yeah.
Like you got to figure out how do you incorporate that into your daily schedule.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like we spend 9 hours, doing a shoot on Friday
at the club.
At the club and at different locations, but it's going to take another 10 hours or probably 30 hours pool between the video editors and everybody to actually turn that into a digestible form.
Sure.
So what people can do is they can find formats that are easier to produce. Like, for example, some people, they just go live on LinkedIn and they talk to the camera, no script, no preparation whatsoever. And that's easy enough to do every day without like being focused on content.
Have you developed a formula or a schedule for this sort of thing at this point?
Yes. So it's really tied to the main thing is with the videos, they have to have like a hook on them and a payoff. So it's kind of like you do a quick hook, which like solidifies the topic. And then you get into a background where you're kind of introducing yourself, and then you very quickly get into the payload. Again, like you don't leave it off to the end because most people don't watch the full thing. But yeah, the key is you have to, this is where I messed up, is I used to think, okay, like I can just come up with what the good idea, not the good ideas, but the ones that are viral or that kick on. Without consuming a lot of social media myself. But to be successful with it, you have to be a consumer of it. So you can't like, I used to be like, okay, I don't want to use social media and dumb down my brain or whatever.
Absolutely.
But you have to.
Absolutely. Well, it's also like doing a podcast. I used to have a podcast and race. Everyone wants to start a podcast. The work that goes into a good podcast is surprising.
Oh yeah.
How much time and preparation and all of that. And it's one of those things. Do you think? Yeah, I mean, and now you've got me thinking about the social. It's a no-brainer, and we all have to do those things that we're not accustomed.
I don't think it's a no-brainer. I think I
agree.
It's kind of like it's a calculated risk, but is it not really risk? It's kind of just like brushing your teeth. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, and if you're naturally inclinated, and and listen, things, I would work on stories. I would follow people for I would fly to Europe and go to meet them, and they wouldn't show up. You know what I mean? And then you have to find it. It's like shit happens.
You got to be consistent with it. So this is the thing that I have figured out. We just, before we got on here, we're planning a shoot with this guy who has 600,000 TikTok followers. He's got a PR agency. He's a member with us. And just looking at like his trajectory, like for a long time, he wasn't getting, any traction, even though the ideas were good.
And what changed?
So I think what changes is as people post regularly, they become quicker with the act of posting, writing the ideas, and then eventually they get a trend which they're able to capitalize on and get some momentum. But you can never get there if you don't.
But it goes back to exactly what you said. Throwing things out there. That's the email that works. You know what I mean? And you don't do it. Yeah. I mean, it's all a lot of this is basic stuff. You don't need to go to, you didn't have to go to Stanford Business School to, just keep trying that. No, these are all good. I'm going to have to take notes on this. You kidding me? I mean, this is informative for me on this one.
There we go. Okay, cool. So I guess bonus question here. If I'm trying to impress a woman, what, how do I, any furniture, interior design, tips that you've learned from being in the biz these past couple of years?
Sure. Well, we do have, actually, speaking of the show, it's like we started the show and then we made some changes. We're starting up again, Two Tree Tips and Tequila, where we have a guest on each week. We sample a new tequila, talk a little bit about furniture, and then we have a tip. I will tell you this. Here's your tip: lighting, and this is not furniture
Mood lighting.
related,
Okay.
or lighting. So I swear to you, like, first of all, just be clean, and I'm a minimalist, but I got these, like, they're little, like, spotlights that shine up. A pair of them at Amazon for $25.
Okay.
You put them in the corner of your room. It changes the entire dimension. And this is what I've learned about furniture. It's like shit that you don't know. Like, also this, move your furniture, change the furniture layout in your apartment. It'll make your brain feel better. It
resets everything.
Totally. It makes you feel like
It
you have
really
a new place.
Crazy about that.
And that lighting and not too much stuff. I definitely believe in that sort of somewhat minimalism. Gives yourself some space. And, again, for furniture is the one thing. This is our one thing that we have going for it. It will help you find a relationship. It will help you find the person who will hopefully pick your furniture for you.
It's the
That's it.
special.
Won't even tell you how many women I've interviewed who said, "Oh, I immediately judge a guy when I walk into his apartment to his furniture." You gotta get your game on.
Well, we got to get your reaction just because you're ringing us up. We had a podcast guest who's a famous pickup artist online. And one of the advice points that he gave was the lighting in the apartment.
Did he?
Yeah.
No, really?
Really? Yeah. So I think we even have a shot of his apartment here. Or his condo or whatever.
Does he have a neon Budweiser?
He's got neon Budweiser, and he's got colored red lighting overhead.
That man, now that is out of my league. I will tell you that. I mean, mine were 2 spots, but that is no joke. And he's got like different colors on it. No, yeah. That's a man who knows what he's doing. By the way,
there you go. You see that, Serge?
That's it.
That's a man who knows.
There it is.
Who's A/B tested.
He probably does much better than I do.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. It's he's the advanced class.
Maybe we have to get him to
get that lighting. I'll tell you that, Chris.
To work a 2-tree.
Get some good lighting, and women. Furniture is a reflection of
the brain.
And on the last thing, it's also I would never have done this startup if I didn't believe it had a lot of value to it for people's lives. Like, we're not selling timeshares. It's like good furniture makes your life better, and it does. And it's something that we neglect, or at least a lot of us neglect. And I always have. I mean, until I was like 45, I had a bed on a metal frame with wheels on it. I mean,
that's so hilarious.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's never too late to act like an adult is all I can say. And if anyone on your show wants a discount on furniture, you email me and we'll give them 15% off.
Yeah, I would be happy. I would love to facilitate that. What we like to ask everybody kind of like, what are their goals for the next couple of years? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What's your biggest kind of guiding objective?
We have the game changer. We have this app, which is, I apologize. I don't need to be specious about it, but we just have to get the final paperwork done, which is going to change. Not only is it going to change, the business, but it will probably have the greatest environmental impact in 100 years in the home furnishing industry, which is something I'm proud of and pleased with. We want to be in 2 years, we want to be somewhat of a household name. We want to be the option for you where you're I always say this, we always, in 2 years, I want people to be like, are you, asking their buddy, you're getting new furniture. What are you going to do? You're going to do it yourself? No, I'm going to 2-tree it.
I'm going to
2-tree it. That's what it is. Easy as 1, 2, 3. So that's our goal. And, it's, as we say, it's a slow grind, and you just got to be patient, and it's coming. But, experiences like this make it fun. I tell you this, you got to
make it worth it. Cool. And where can people find you? Where's the best place?
They can find us at our website, www.twotree.co, and or Instagram at 2treeco.
Cool.
And I appreciate the time for having me today. That was fun.
Absolutely. We're going to drop all the links in, guys. So if you want some furniture, if you want to up the furniture game, we'll also drop Tim's contact info. And,
anyone who's ever want to talk about anything, by all means, and I love to, you know what I mean? And by all means, I find it, this is the network. this is helpful for me, for someone who doesn't have a network, in this space. So it's great.
Or
Really is.
I'll leave it to you. What are you looking for if people have businesses or
Sure. I mean, you sent me an
people
email today, which is very valuable. We were just talking about it literally today. All of it, I am a student all the time, and the more help or insights or business connections or what have you, or all of it helps. I don't ignore anyone. I go through my spam mail because sometimes I feel like I'd miss something.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Then you do miss a lot of things in the spam.
Yep. And I respond, and it's just those simple things. So yeah, and it's just like nice to be talking about it and part of a community, and that's what I hope to build too, of like a network of people like yourself and in the community who care about this shit.
Cool.
Sorry for my profanity.
We can be profane here. Cool.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
So on.